Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to Tool Show with me, Master Dan, the Journeyman shooter. And it's a beautiful day. I'm up here in Crescent Heights, and I figured why not do one of our coffee time segments before I had to go to work here. And it's the caramel drizzle, and we all know why Snoop Dogg loves that, so it's for the drizzle. But today I'd like to talk to you guys about something that's pretty important to all of us, basically. It kind of affects the earth, and it kind of affects everything, really. And if you look up in the top corner of the screen there, that's Jupiter. And Jupiter is, no, just kidding, it's not Jupiter. That's our moon. It's it looks a little bit small here, but in real life you can just kind of go out and look at it there too. But the moon, that's kind of an important thing, is because it kind of controls the tides. It controls all the other stuff that kind of happens on Earth, and it's a pretty important part of our Earth, basically. It's kind of a satellite that kind of goes around us. There's millions of satellites up there in space, and that kind of is where we're going to next, is basically with how those satellites got there and who won the space race. But the satellite, the moon, it's kind of been there forever, and it's been always part of history. And I know there's actually some history reports, and there's articles, and even there's famous journals where they talk about how the moon wasn't there at one point and people brought it here, and basically, so that's kind of weird. You could always think about that as maybe there wasn't the moon and maybe it was brought here, because that's what some cultures believe. But personally, I kind of believe the fact that maybe it was some planet that hit our planet and shot off into space, and it all formed after kind of going around and around for a long time, and that's what formed all together. All the hot rock and everything kind of formed together and created some alternate satellite, and that's pretty cool too. But now part of the moon is there was the space race, and that was between the Americans and the Russians, and both of them believed whoever landed on the moon first would control space, because the moon is, I don't know, it's a strategic location, basically. You're looking down on Earth from above, and whoever gets that controls the space. So the moon landing, which is kind of a major thing, I was always a conspiracy theorist where, like, I didn't quite believe in it because there's a lot of stuff that happened, and people are like, why would you not believe in that? But, well, when you think about the history of it and the timing and what happened and how it happened, it's just something doesn't quite add up, because they lost all the original footage tapes from it, so there's no actual footage of the landing, which is kind of crazy, because if you look into that, there's actually type in NASA's first footage and there's nothing. So that's kind of another one. But you want to make sure that you're also asking questions too, because it does seem a little bit crazy, because these guys went to space, they went to the moon, they landed on the moon when nobody else could do it. They barely could, they didn't even have the internet back then where people could communicate like that kind of stuff, and they landed a small ship on the moon, took off from the moon again, and then came back to Earth. At the time, it seemed kind of preposterous. The Russians, they were really close to landing their first ship on the moon, but it wasn't manned. And the day before the Americans landed their people on the moon, the Russians actually crashed a ship onto the moon, or crashed an orbiter that they were trying to land on the moon to see if they could actually safely land people. And that was why the Americans realized they had to do this faster, because whoever got that moon first controlled space, and that was what they believed. So the Americans sent their astronauts up there, and they landed, and sure enough, that saved the world. It saved the world for the Americans, because they got the space, and they got all the satellites, and they control most of space right now, so they kind of know everything that's going on out there, which is, it seems unfair, because the whole world should be involved, but that's what it is. They won the race, so I guess that's, to the winners go the spoils, they say, which it isn't fair, especially being somebody that's had to work real hard his whole life or something. But that's the thing, that who knows, they had a lot of reasons to fake that, and they had all the means to do it. America had the best television studios in the world at the time, and Hollywood was still booming. There was all the other kind of stuff, and they could make a movie no problem. And especially if that movie changed the world, why not? It's the Russians versus the Americans. All they needed to do was land that one thing. And it's kind of funny, because if you look at the interviews the next day from Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they when they landed, they do all the interviews, and they look so just, I don't know, shocked almost. It's not like wow, look we landed on the moon, look what a man did, look what we did. They look like something's wrong. It's like, you should be way more happy if you conquered space. But no, they look like they saw something, or something happened, and that could be what happened, because I know when they did land, there was also a radio silence for 2 minutes, basically, where they cut the radios on all of the main broadcasts to the world, and because they had a live broadcast of when they were going to land, and then all of a sudden it just cut out for 2 minutes. And there's a lot of talk basically about radio operators, ham operators at the time that had a ham radio, and they were listening from the whatever, the Houston area, and they were all listening to those beams that were coming back, and they heard what they were saying, and they said they ran into stuff and they were seeing weird stuff, and it just sounded kind of crazy. So it's just a weird story. And even the story of Neil Armstrong having to land 20 miles out of the way or whatever, and having to self maneuver on a foreign planet, it's just, I don't know, it's either that's one of the most amazing things in the history, or it's a little bit out there. But other than that, that's kind of what I wanted to go at, because the Americans landed. They, I don't know, I guess they won first. They planted their flags, and that was another thing. The flags on the moon. I think they said there's 15 flags on the moon right now, but part of those flags on the moon is there is no actual stripes on them, because they were the American flags. But as you can see, the moon's kind of brightened up in there in the corner, and the brightness from the sun actually bleached all those flags, so there's not actually any kind of colors left on the flags. So if somebody does land up there, they're not going to actually know what country it is, because it's just a white flag that was bleached by the sun. But that's kind of part of it too. So the moon's got a lot of different neat things on it, and some people believe it's hollow. Some people believe that it was actually created by some other, I don't know, person or some kind of alien species, and they brought it here to kind of monitor us. I don't know. Who knows what's actually out there, because there's all those ancient alien astronaut theorists, and they've obviously know something, because they've got a show on history. It's like, come on, man. I've been working so hard, and then these guys that believe in, I don't know, aliens bringing us to the moon and the moon being hollow. But the moon could be hollow, who knows? I've never actually seen it, but that's kind of, it's like, come on, just give us the show. So if you guys can, sponsor us, subscribe, like us, and then we'll go from there. And if you want to invest, if you know some people, just pass it along, it'd be great. So that's kind of all we wanted to talk about today, was just getting ahead and how you could, I don't know, enjoy what's around you. And the moon affects us all, so why not think about it, and why not look into it? So for Tool Show, I'm Master Dan, the Journeyman shooter. Get out there, look up the moon, and dream about the stars.